Alright, yins guys. Today we're gonna read from this here book again. Sorry. And we're gonna read out of the Testament of Abraham. Not the whole thing, but we're gonna read the part about Abraham meeting death. And people that like to read, this is for people who like to read about death or hear stuff about death. I just think this is kind of cool. Like I said in my other videos in this series, this is not Bible. This is not Bible thumping. This is an exploration into some of the texts that a lot of people don't want you to read, but are pretty cool. See, if you're a scholar of some sorts, have read apocryphal books, and people who have occasionally even read things like about Apollo, about Hercules, different kind of mythology like that. If you've followed stuff like that, whether you were in college or just read a bunch of stuff too. But I also got into classical music, and I read the CD covers of some of the I read the CD inserts of some of the operas, like one Apollo and Daphne, and just all the translation in English. But read all kind of stuff, But anyway, on with this here story. I'm going to start right here with it. This chapter about Abraham meeting death. I'm going to go straight to that, not read the whole deal, just about Abraham meeting death. So here goes. Then the Most High said, "Call death here to me, the one who is called the shameless face and the pitiless look." And Michael, the spirit, went away and said to death, "Come, the sovereign of creation, the immortal king is calling you." When death heard, oops, I almost went 2 pages instead of when. When death heard this, he was much alarmed and shivered and shook, and he came with great trepidation and stood before the invisible Father, shivering, groaning, and trembling. And he awaited his sovereign's bidding. The invisible God said to death, "Come, you most bitter and savage name in all the world, hide your ferocity, cover up your corruption, put off your asperity from you, and put on your beauty and all your glory, and go down to my friend Abraham. Take him and bring him to me. Yet I tell you now not to frighten him, but win him with gentle guile, for he is my own true friend." Death listened and went out from the presence of the Most High, and he put on his most brilliant robe and made his face shine like the sun. He appeared more handsome and beautiful than any human, having assumed an archangel's form, and his cheeks flashed with fire. And so he went off to Abraham. Now the righteous Abraham had left his room, and he was sitting under the trees of Mamre, the chin on his his chin on his hand, waiting for the archangel Michael to come back. And lo, there came in his direction a pleasant smell and flashing light. And Abraham turned round and saw death coming towards him in great glory and beauty. And Abraham got up to meet him, for he thought he was God's prince. And when death saw him, he bowed to him and said, "Greetings, honored Abraham, righteous soul, true friend of God Most High, and companion of the holy angels." And Abraham said to death, "Greetings to you. You are like the sun, and you shine as does the sun, most glorious helper, brilliant, wondrous man. Whence comes your splendor to us? Who are you, and whence come you?" Death said, Most righteous Abraham, I tell you the truth. I am the bitter cup of death." Abraham said to him, "No, you are the world's paragon of loveliness. You are the glory and beauty of angels and of men. You are more nobly formed than any form there is, and yet you say that you are the bitter cup of death. Should should you not rather say I am more nobly formed than nobility itself? And Death said, No, I am telling you the truth. It is that very name which God has given me that I am telling you. And Abraham said, Why have you come here? And Death said, I have come for your holy soul, Abraham. So Abraham said, I understand what you are saying, but I will not follow you. And Death was silent and answered him not a word. Then Abraham got up and went into his house, but Death followed him all the way. And Abraham went up to his room, but Death also went up with him. And Abraham lay down on his couch, and Death came and sat at his feet. And Abraham said, Go away from me, for I want to rest on my couch. Death said, I will not go away until I take your spirit from you. Abraham said to him, By God who is immortal, I bid you tell the truth. Are you Death? Death said to him, I am Death. I am the one who destroys the world. And Abraham said, Since you are Death, I pray you, tell me whether you come to all men in this way, in fine form and glory and beauty like this. And Death said, No, my lord Abraham, your righteous deeds and boundless ocean of your hospitality and immensity of your love of God have become a crown upon my head. I approach the righteous in beauty and very quietly and with gentle guile, but sinners I approach stinking of corruption with the greatest possible ferocity and asperity, and an expression that is both savage and without mercy. And Abraham said, I pray you, listen to me and show me your ferocity and all your corruption and asperity. And Death said, You could not see my ferocity. I think that's the word. The most righteous Abraham. Abraham said, I could see all your ferocity because of the name of the living God, for the power of my God who is in heaven is with me. Then Death stripped himself of all radiance and beauty, and all the glory and sun-like appearance he had assumed, and he put on a tyrant's robe, and he gave himself a threatening look, more savage than any kind of wild beast, and fouler than in any foul thing known to man. He displayed to Abraham 7 fiery dragons' heads, and 14 faces of blazing fire and great ferocity. So, in other words, did he look like maybe the Ghost Rider? Like in the Ghost Rider comic book and the movie, which I only seen part of it. Some of my neighbors said the Ghost Rider movie kind of sucked. It was disappointing, so I never really watched it. Anyway, back to the story. He said that, he displayed to Abraham 7 fiery dragons' heads and 14 faces of blazing fire and ferocity. So he kind of looked like the Ghost Rider. One dark-looking face and viper-like of the blackest kind. So a real black, mean-looking snake. Wow. One a most horrible cliff, and fiercer than an asp. One a fearsome lion, and one a horned viper and basilisk. If you don't know any of you guys know what a basilisk is, it's like a lizard. I guess it's kind of like a Komodo lizard. It bites and it attacks. Probably almost like an alligator. I think they get about as big as alligators. I'm not sure. I'll have to look that up. And he displayed also a face of a fiery sword, and a face bearing a sword, a face of most dreadful flashing lightning with a sound of fearful thunder. Moreover, he displayed another face of a ferocious raging sea and ferocious boiling river and terrifying 3-horned dragon and a cup of poisons mixed together. In short, he displayed to him ferocity and plenty, asperity, beyond endurance, every kind of deadly disease. The smell of death hung in it all. So, other words, death didn't just show him faces. Death showed him poisons, a ferocious sea, and along with wild beasts and that. different kinds of way people see death. And so great was his asperity and ferocity displayed that the men servants and maid servants died in number of about 7,000. And even righteous Abraham himself came to the brink of death, and his spirit failed him. So in other words, the presence of death killed everybody around him. And when the all-holy Abraham had seen all this way, he said to death, I beg you, all destructive death, hide your ferocity, and put on your beauty in the form that you had before. Thereupon death hid his ferocity, and put on the beauty he had before. And Abraham said to death, Why have you done this? You have killed all my men servants and maid servants. Did God send you here today for this? And death said, No, my lord Abraham, it was not as you suggest. It was because of you I was sent here. And Abraham said to death, And how then was it that these servants died, if the Lord has not given word? And death said, Believe me, most righteous Abraham, the marvel is that you too were not taken off along with them. I am only telling you the truth when I say that if the right hand of God had not been with you in that hour, you too would have been to depart in this life. In other words, you would have been dead if God wasn't with you. And righteous Abraham said, I realize now that I have come to the brink of death, and my spirit fails me. Nevertheless, I beg you, all destructive death, since my servants have died before their time, come, let us beseech the Lord our God to hear us and raise up those who perished before their time through your ferocity. And death said, Amen, so let it be. So Abraham got up and fell upon his face on the earth in prayer, and death with him. And God sent the spirit of life upon all those who had died, and they were restored to life. So then righteous Abraham ascribed to glory of God. And Abraham went up to his room and lay down to rest, but death came and stood before him. And Abraham said to him, Go away from me, I want to rest, for I am exhausted. And death said, I will not leave you until I take your soul. And Abraham, with a sullen face and angry look, said to death, Who was ordered you to say this? You are bluffing and saying this on your own. I will not follow you until the Prince Michael comes to me, and then I will go with him. And furthermore, if you want me to follow you, explain to me all your changes of appearance, and 7 fiery dragons' heads, and the face of the cliff, what that means, the ruthless sword, the great boiling river, the turbid sea, ferocity. Explain to me all the insufferable thunder and terrifying lightning, and the stinking cup of poisons mixed together, what that means. Explain them all to me. And death said, Listen, glorious Abraham, for 7 ages I have created havoc in the world and bring men down to Hades, kings and rulers, rich and poor, slaves and free men. I escort them to the depths of Hades, and that is why I showed you the 7 dragons' heads. The face of fire I showed you because many are burned to death by fire, so it is through the face of fire that they see death. The face of the cliff I showed you because many men fall from the top of trees or for fearful cliffs and disappear and perish. And so it is the form of a fearful cliff that they see death. The face of the sword I showed you because many are killed by the sword in wars, and they see death in the form of a sword. And the face of the great boiling river I show you because many are carried off by inundation. Why don't they just say currents? What's this funny word? Inundations. Carried off and swept away by mighty rivers and die by drowning. And they see death before their time. The face of the ferocious raging sea I show you because many encounter violent storms at sea and are shipwrecked and sink beneath the waves, and they see death at the sea. The insufferable thunder and fearful lightning I showed you because many men come to a time of wrath with insufferable thunder and fearful lightning, and perish suddenly. Why don't they just say struck by lightning? And that is why they see death. I show you also poisonous creatures, asps and basilisks and leopards and lions and their cubs and bears and vipers. In short, the face of every beast I did show you, most glorious one, because many men are killed by beasts and others die after being bitten by poisonous snakes, dragons, asps, horned vipers, basilisks, and the viper. I show you also deadly cups of poison mixed together, because many are given poisons to drink by other men without apparent cause, are carried off at once. Okay, last chapter. Yeah, myself a little rest here. Okay. Yeah, this is the rest of it here. Here goes. And Abraham said, "Tell me, I pray you, is the kind of death that comes to a man incalculable?" Death said, "I tell you truly, by God's truth, there are 72 deaths." There's that number 72 again. That number is also in Islam, I believe, and I ain't going to go into that. But God's truth, yeah, there are 72 deaths. One of these is the righteous death, which excuse me. One of these is the righteous death which has its appointed hour. Let me say that again. One of these is the righteous death which has its appointed hour. And many men arrive at death and burial within a single hour. Lo, I have told you everything you asked. Now I tell you, most righteous Abraham, now I tell you, most righteous Abraham, I have done all this discussing. Once and for all, stop questioning me. Come follow me, even as God, the judge of all, has directed me. But Abraham said to death, Leave me for a little while longer to rest on my couch, for I am feeble. Sounds like, remember the movie, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? The guy, they're singing, Oh death, won't you spare me for another day? I have that song with the guy's name. I have that in my collection. I think I'll look at up real quick after I finish reading this chapter. But I have his stuff in my collection, apart from the Oh Brother soundtrack. But, whoa, death, won't you spare me for another? The guy singing in that Ku Klux Klan robe, you know, when the guys were rescuing their friend from a hanging, saving them from the Ku Klux Klan and all that. I was just thinking about that movie when I read it. Okay, now where did I leave off? All right. But Abraham said to death, Leave me a little while longer to rest on my couch, for I am feeble. Woe, death, wouldn't you spare me for another day? From the moment I set eyes upon you, my strength failed. Excuse me. Blah. From the moment I set eyes upon you, my strength failed. All my limbs seem like lumps of lead. I am very short of breath. Go away for a little while. I must confess I cannot stand the sight of you. And his son Isaac came and fell upon his breast, weeping. And his wife Sarah too, and she flung her arms around his feet, wailing bitterly. And all his male and female slaves came as well. They gathered around his couch, and Abraham came to the brink of death. And death said to Abraham, Come kiss my right hand, and may joy and life and power come to you. For excuse me. For death was deceiving Abraham. And Abraham kissed his hand, and immediately his soul was stuck fast to death's hand. And at once the archangel Michael was at his side with his host of angels, and they took his precious soul into their hands in a sheet of divinely woven, and with divinely scented myrrh and spices they tended righteous Abraham's body until the third day after his death, and they buried him in the land of promise, at the oak of Mamre, where he was sitting in the beginning of the story. And the angels escorted his precious soul, and they went up into heaven, chanting the Tristigion hymn of God. I have to look that up. The sovereign of all. They placed it where it could worship the God of God. Damn, what's wrong with me today? Coughing. With God the Father, and they went to great Abraham. Hymn of praise and doxology to the Lord was ended. And when Abraham had worshipped, they came the clear voice of God the Father saying, "Take my friend Abraham to paradise, where there are tents of the most righteous ones, and the resting places of all the saints, Isaac, Jacob, and his bosom. There is no toil there, no grief, no sighing, but peace, rejoicing, and endless everlasting life." Well, there you have it. Yeah, I don't know what that cough there was all about. I had that cough on and off all week. Yeah, my allergies, all kind of crap in the air. But yeah, I was trying to read, and that cough was kind of going on there. Apologize for that. But anyway, yeah, I got it all read in about 21 minutes. So right away, it's like, well, going to be crossing in 22 minutes. I finished that off. Yeah, that cough almost ruined it. I had that cough all week. It was better for the most part. I still get it once in a while. Probably allergies and all kind of junk floating in the air. But I notice while I'm reading or talking for a long time, I still get it a little bit. But yeah, pretty cool story anyway. I think I'm going to end this video right here. Stay tuned for another one. I'm not sure what I'm going to read yet. I was going to eventually read Jubilees. I've been meaning to get around to it, because Jubilees talks about Enoch, more about Enoch. It dovetails into the books of Enoch. Like I said before, Genesis, unlike Genesis, Jubilees is like Genesis, but the story about Enoch and the Nephilim when they came down is right in there in detail and all that stuff. So I was eventually going to read that, and there was stuff about it, more stuff about Abraham in it, and more stuff about Noah and his sons are in Jubilees too, and Prince Mastema, follow him the whole way. But so I'm probably going to go into that next. But I wanted to read this Abraham story because Abraham seeing death like us. Oh yeah, I think one of the other ones I was going to read too was the Testament of Job. There's also a thing called the Apocalypse of Abraham, and the Testament of Job, which they even talk about the death of Job. And I think one more story that I am going to read real quick too is Abraham's conversation with his father about idols, which there's some funny stuff in there when Abraham burned these idols and cooked his father's food and all that stuff. But I think it's kind of funny. I'm not going to say it all and ruin it right now. Right when I read it, I'll tell you. But yeah, there's something that was kind of like a little bit funny in there. You can have a little chuckle in there while you're at it. But anyway, I'm up to 23 minutes already. I'm going to end this video right here. Hope you enjoyed that. And stay tuned for the next one. See you next time.